April 15th, 1912, 2:17 a.m. The Titanic's boat deck, North Atlantic, 28-degree nice water, climbing the rails. Charlotte Collyer stands at Lifeboat 14, screaming a man's name into the chaos. In her hand, a brown leather ticket wallet with a brass clasp soaked through. 12 days ago in Southampton, she paid $7, equivalent to $2,800 today, for a stranger's third-class ticket. The man was Harvey Collyer. Same surname. No relation. Pure coincidence, she thought. He thought it was fate. Now he's forcing her into the lifeboat, refusing his own seat. "You bought my life once," he says. "I'm returning it." Then he pushes her away. 1,500 people will die tonight. This wallet contains both their tickets. What Charlotte doesn't know, Harvey Collyer isn't even his real name. Why did he lie? What did he know about this ship? And what secret has he been carrying since Southampton? 12 days earlier, April 3rd, 1912, Southampton. Charlotte Collyer stood at the White Star Line ticket office, recently widowed, 31 years old, holding her daughter Marjorie's hand. The Titanic's maiden voyage, largest ship ever built, tickets sold out for months. She'd saved everything to book third-class passage to Idaho. Fresh start, new life. The ticket clerk counted her money twice, looked apologetic. "We have one berth left, ma'am, but there's a man. He's been waiting 3 days." Charlotte turned. Harvey Collyer stood behind her. Same surname on the register. Hollow-eyed, no luggage, hands shaking as he counted exact fare. £7. She watched him recount it twice, saw the desperation, heard his breath catching. She didn't think. Just paid for both tickets, £14 total. The clerk stamped 2 tickets, slid them across the counter in a brown leather wallet with a brass clasp. Harvey stared at the wallet, didn't touch it, just whispered, "I knew you'd come." Charlotte took the wallet, handed him his ticket. "What's your first name?" she asked. He turned and walked out. She never got an answer. People close to her later said she thought about chasing him, demanding explanation. But Marjorie was tired, and the boarding house was 3 blocks away, and Charlotte didn't believe in fate, just kindness. The leather wallet stayed in her coat pocket. She didn't know then. It would be the only thing she'd carry off the Titanic alive. April 4th through April 9th, Southampton. Harvey Collyer shadowed Charlotte and Marjorie through the boarding house district. Same pub every evening, corner table, nursing one drink, watching the boarding house entrance. He never spoke. Charlotte noticed him the second day. Third day, Marjorie asked, "Mama, why does that man have our name?" Charlotte didn't have an answer. The Titanic boarding was set for April 10th. Third-class passengers boarded last. Historical fact, documented in White Star Line procedures. Harvey's routine never changed. Mornings, sitting on the bench across from their boarding house. Afternoons, walking 3 steps behind them to the docks to watch the ship. Evenings, that same pub corner. The leather wallet always visible in his coat, brass clasp catching lamplight. On April 8th, Charlotte confronted him outside the boarding house. "Why are you following us?" Harvey looked at her like she'd asked why the sky was blue. "I'm not following. I'm waiting." For what? He wouldn't say. That night, the boarding house clerk mentioned Harvey had rented the room Charlotte just vacated. Same bed, same view of the street. The clerk thought it was strange. Said Harvey asked specific questions about who'd stayed there before. Charlotte asked Marjorie to keep close. She didn't trust coincidence anymore, but she also didn't report it. According to those who knew her, Charlotte Collyer believed in second chances, believed people carried burdens she couldn't see. That belief would save her life. But first, it would cost someone else theirs. Harvey booked the same room, slept in the same bed, and every night took out that leather wallet, opened it, stared at something inside. April 10th, 1912, Southampton docks. 20,000 spectators packed the pier. Noon departure. The Titanic, 882 feet long, 9 decks, 2,200 passengers and crew, sat gleaming white against gray water. Newspapers called it the ship that God himself couldn't sink. Local paper photographed Charlotte waving from third-class deck. Widow's fresh start, Idaho bound. The headline ran that afternoon. Charlotte boarded with Marjorie at 11:30 a.m. Third-class passengers loaded last per White Star protocol. Harvey boarded at 11:58 a.m., 2 minutes before gangway closure. No luggage, just the brown leather wallet in his coat. Steerage inspection at the boarding ramp. Standard tuberculosis screening, documented in survivor accounts. The inspector opened Harvey's wallet. One ticket, one photograph face down. Nothing else. The brass clasp caught sunlight. Inspector noted Collyer twice on the manifest, marked it suspicious. Asked Harvey if they were related. Harvey said, "Not yet." Charlotte spotted him on deck 20 minutes after departure. He stood at the third-class rail, watching Southampton fade. She walked over. He turned away. Didn't run. Just repositioned himself where he could see her cabin door from the upper deck. Marjorie whispered, "He's still watching." Charlotte didn't answer. What could she say? That the man whose ticket she bought was haunting her like a ghost? That his eyes looked like someone searching for something he'd lost decades ago? The Titanic's maiden voyage began with perfect weather. Calm seas, clear skies. Charlotte Collyer tried to enjoy it. But every time she looked up, Harvey was there. Not threatening, not approaching, just watching. Like a man keeping vigil. Like someone who knew something terrible was coming and couldn't look away. The wallet stayed in his coat. Always visible. Always there. Days 1 through 3 at sea, April 10th, 12. Third-class quarters, cramped, 700 passengers, shared dining halls, narrow corridors. The Titanic's luxury existed on upper decks. First-class suites, grand staircase, a la carte restaurant. Third class got functional. Bunk beds, communal bathrooms, 2 sittings for meals. Historical records document the divide. Third-class passengers rarely saw the opulence above. Harvey positioned himself where he could see Charlotte's cabin door. G-deck, starboard side. He took the same table at every meal, faced the same direction. The leather wallet sat beside his plate. He never ate, just watched. Other passengers noticed. Ship's steward asked if he was seasick. Harvey said no. Asked if he was ill. Harvey said no. Asked if he needed the doctor. Harvey said, "I need to make sure she's safe." Charlotte observed from 3 tables away. Harvey never blinked, never looked at anyone else, just her. Marjorie refused to eat unless Charlotte sat with her back to him. "His eyes, Mama. They're too sad." Charlotte agreed. They were, like someone who'd been searching so long they'd forgotten what joy looked like. On April 12th, mid-Atlantic, Charlotte approached during dinner. Harvey didn't move. She sat across from him, wallet between them. "Why?" she asked. Harvey touched the brass clasp. "Because," he said, "I thought you were someone else." He slid the wallet across. "Open it." Inside, 1 third-class ticket, 1 photograph. Charlotte picked up the photo. A woman, young, 1890s dress, standing in front of a Seattle storefront. The woman looked like Charlotte. Same build, same hair, same eyes. On the back, written in faded ink, C. Collyer, Seattle, 1894. Charlotte's hands shook. Who is she? Harvey took the wallet back, closed it carefully. Someone I've been looking for since you were a child. The story was about to break wide open. April 13th, mid-Atlantic. Calm seas. The Titanic's wireless room received ice warnings throughout the day, documented historical fact, messages preserved in inquiry records. Passengers didn't know. Charlotte and Harvey sat in the third-class common room while Marjorie played with other children. Harvey told her everything. His real name, Harvey Frost. Former Pinkerton detective, hired in 1894 by a Seattle bank. A woman named Catherine Collyer, C. Collyer, had embezzled $3,000, equivalent to $120,000 today, and vanished. The agency assigned Harvey to find her. He tracked Collier's surnames for 18 years. Every lead, every city, every woman with the name. Seattle to Chicago, to New York to London. By 1912, he'd spent 18 years chasing a ghost. The photograph was the only image of her that existed. Charlotte stared. You thought I was her. Harvey shook his head. At first. Then I realized you were too young. But the coincidence? Same name, booking the Titanic, the widow story. I thought maybe you were her daughter. Maybe she'd told you something. The wallet sat. Between them, brass clasp dull in lamplight. I bought my own ticket weeks ago. I lied about needing help. I needed to see if you'd recognize the name, if you'd react. You didn't. Charlotte felt cold. So you've been following me for nothing? Harvey smiled, bitter. Not nothing. I learned you're not connected, but I also learned something else. He pulled a folded letter from the wallet. Your husband, late husband, he wrote to me 6 months ago. Found my name in old Pinkerton records. He knew he was dying. He paid me $7 to watch over you and Marjorie on this voyage. Charlotte grabbed the letter. Her husband's handwriting. Instructions to Harvey Frost. Ensure Charlotte reaches Idaho safely. Don't reveal yourself. Protect them from shadows. The date. October 1911. 4 months before her husband died. Harvey touched the wallet. So I'm not chasing ghosts anymore. I'm keeping a promise. Charlotte looked at the photograph again. What was her maiden name? Harvey said, Frost. They were cousins. They'd never known. April 14th, morning, 400 miles from the ice field. Charlotte couldn't stop thinking about the letter. Harvey stayed close now, not hiding, just present. Marjorie accepted him. Is he Uncle Harvey? She asked. Charlotte said, something like that. Harvey spent the day on deck, smoking, watching the horizon. The Titanic cut through calm water, 22 knots, making excellent time. Afternoon, more ice warnings. Captain Smith posted lookouts. Passengers didn't worry. The ship was unsinkable. Harvey told Charlotte more about Catherine Collyer. The Seattle theft had broken her engagement to a wealthy merchant. She'd been a bank clerk, trusted, invisible. She walked out one Friday with $3,000 in a carpet bag and never returned. Police thought she'd gone east. Pinkerton thought she'd gone to Canada. Harvey thought she'd disappeared into the immigrant tide, changed her name, married quickly, vanished into the American sprawl, where records didn't follow. Why chase her for 18 years? Charlotte asked. Harvey touched the wallet. Because the agency said I failed. Because my career ended the day she vanished. Because I needed to prove I could finish something. He looked at Charlotte. And because your husband's letter Gave me something I'd lost. A reason that wasn't about revenge. The wallet now contained 3 things. 2 third-class tickets, 1 photograph, 1 letter. Harvey showed Charlotte the Pinkerton badge he still carried. Unofficial. He'd been dismissed in 1896. But he kept the badge, kept the photo, kept searching. People who knew Harvey later said he was the kind of man who couldn't let go. The kind who made promises and kept them, even when the promises destroyed him. Charlotte asked, "What happens when we reach New York?" Harvey said, "I make sure you and Marjorie get to Idaho. Then I stop looking for Catherine. I accept she's gone." Charlotte touched his arm. "Your family. Come with us." Harvey looked at the ocean. "Maybe. Let me think about it." That night, the Titanic would hit an iceberg. Harvey wouldn't get the chance to think about anything else. April 14th, 11:40 p.m. Charlotte and Marjorie asleep in their third-class cabin. Harvey on deck, smoking, couldn't sleep. The night was moonless, water flat calm, conditions documented by survivors, making icebergs nearly invisible. Harvey felt the ship shudder. Not violent, just a tremor, like the Titanic had brushed something. He looked starboard, saw the iceberg sliding past, white against black water. Heard ice chunks hitting the deck. He understood immediately. Dropped the cigarette, ran toward third class. The leather wallet in his coat, always there. The corridors filled fast. Stewards shouting, passengers confused. Historical fact: third-class gates were locked to prevent panic spreading to upper decks. Harvey reached G-deck at 11:52 p.m. The gates were closed. Stewards on the other side. Harvey picked the lock. Learned it in the Pinkerton days. Never forgot. Gate swung open. He pushed through. Charlotte's cabin. Door locked. Harvey pounded. Charlotte woke, opened it. Marjorie crying behind her. "Get dressed," Harvey said. "Warm clothes. Now." Charlotte heard his voice, saw his face, didn't argue. Dressed Marjorie in 2 coats, grabbed her own coat, left everything else. Harvey led them toward the stairs. Other passengers just waking, asking questions. Harvey didn't answer, just moved. They reached the boat deck at 12:05 a.m. Lifeboats were being uncovered. Women and children first. White Star Line protocol, documented in survivor testimony. Officers shouting. Crew struggling with davits. The ship's bow already lower. Stern rising slightly. Harvey found Lifeboat 14. Officer Lowe commanding. Real officer. Survived. Gave testimony at inquiries. Harvey put his hand on Charlotte's shoulder. "Stay here. Don't leave this spot." Charlotte grabbed his arm. "What's happening?" Harvey pulled the leather wallet from his coat. "The ship's sinking. You're getting on a lifeboat. I'm making sure." He handed her the wallet. "Proof of passage. Keep it." Charlotte looked at the wallet, at Harvey, at the chaos. "You're coming too." Harvey shook his head. "Women and children first. That's the rule." He'd spent 18 years chasing a ghost. Now he had 12 minutes to save the only family he had left. 12:15 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. Evacuation in full chaos. Lifeboat 14 loaded slowly. Officer Lowe strict about protocol. Only women and children. Charlotte stood with Marjorie, holding the leather wallet. Harvey stayed 3 feet behind, watching. Other men tried to board. Lowe threatened to shoot anyone who rushed. Historical documentation confirms Lowe fired warning shots, maintained discipline. Harvey stepped forward, spoke to Lowe. Quiet. Pointed at Charlotte and Marjorie. Lowe nodded, motioned them forward. Charlotte hesitated. "You need this more than I do," she said, trying to return the wallet. Harvey pushed it back. Open it. Read the letter. Charlotte opened the wallet while crew loaded Marjorie into the lifeboat. The letter from her husband, instructions to Harvey. But underneath, another page. Charlotte unfolded it. Her husband's last words, written the day before he died. Harvey Frost is my brother. Different surname because our mother remarried. He doesn't know. If you're reading this, he's kept his promise. Trust him with your life. Charlotte's breath stopped. Looked at Harvey. Harvey nodded. Your husband's half-brother. I didn't know until I got his letter. We'd never met. He found me through old Pinkerton records, realized we were related, asked me to protect you. His voice broke. I thought I was doing it for money. Then I met you. Then I realized he'd given me something more than a job. He'd given me family. Charlotte grabbed his coat. Then you're getting in this boat. Harvey lifted Marjorie fully, turned to Charlotte. Your husband saved my life once. Paid off my debts when the Pinkerton work dried up. I never knew why. Now I do. He helped Charlotte into the lifeboat. I'm returning what I owe. Lowe shouted for them to lower away. Charlotte lunged for Harvey's arm. There's room. Harvey looked at the lifeboat. Historical fact. Many lifeboats left half empty that night. Lifeboat 14 had capacity for 65. 32 were aboard. Harvey knew, but he also knew the rules, and he knew promises. He placed the wallet in Charlotte's coat pocket. The $7 you paid, that was your husband's money. He gave it to me to buy my own ticket. I'm giving it back. Then he pushed the lifeboat away from the ship. 1:30 a.m. to 2 a.m., the Titanic tilting 10 degrees forward. Lifeboat 14 rode 100 yards away, Officer Lowe directing. Charlotte sat in the stern. Marjorie pressed against her, both staring at the ship. Harvey stood at the rail, brown leather wallet visible in his hand, his own ticket, the one he'd kept separate. Charlotte watched him through tears. Other passengers in the lifeboat praying, crying, silent. The Titanic's lights still burning, band playing on deck, documented by survivors, debated for decades, but confirmed by multiple accounts. Harvey didn't move, just stood at the rail, facing the lifeboat. Charlotte could see the wallet in his hand, brass clasp catching the ship's lights. Officer Lowe called for the crew to row farther. Suction, he said. When the ship goes, it'll pull everything down. Historical fact. This fear kept most lifeboats away, though suction proved minimal. Lifeboat 14 moved to 200 yards. Charlotte lost sight of Harvey's face, but she could still see the wallet. He held it above his head, like a signal, like proof. The ship's bow submerged fully at 2:10 a.m. The stern rose, documented in survivor testimony, argued about for years, but confirmed by the wreck's condition. Harvey climbed the tilting deck, holding the railing, the wallet still in his hand. Charlotte screamed his name. He didn't turn, just kept climbing until he reached the highest point he could stand. 2:20 a.m. The Titanic's stern rose nearly vertical. Harvey held the wallet above his head as the ship went down. Charlotte saw it. The brown leather, catching the last of the deck lights before the ocean swallowed everything. The sound, survivors said later, was like the ship breaking her back. The stern settled. The lights went out. Then silence. Charlotte clutched the wallet in her pocket, realized Harvey had kept a duplicate ticket. He'd always had his own passage. The $7 she paid was extra. He'd lied about needing help. He'd lied about everything except the promise. Marjorie whispered, "Is Uncle Harvey swimming?" Charlotte couldn't answer. She just held her daughter and watch the place where the Titanic used to be. Harvey knew, she thought. He always knew. That's why he carried 2 tickets. That's why he never planned to survive. April 15th, dawn. RMS Carpathia arrived at 4 ECM. Historical fact, documented in ship's logs and survivor accounts. Captain Rostron had steamed through ice fields at full speed, risking his own ship to reach the Titanic's last known position. 706 survivors rescued, 1,517 dead. Charlotte and Marjorie were pulled aboard Carpathia at 6:30 a.m., Lifeboat 14, among the last retrieved. Charlotte still clutched the brown leather wallet, brass clasp broken, snapped when Harvey pushed the lifeboat away. She opened it on Carpathia's deck, hands shaking. Inside, her husband's letter, Harvey's Pinkerton badge, both their tickets. Marjorie asleep in a blanket beside her. Charlotte read the letter again, then again. Her husband had written it 6 months before his death, mailed it to Harvey Frost with $7 and instructions. The letter explained everything. Her husband and Harvey, half-brothers, different surnames, never met until her husband tracked Harvey down in 1911. Her husband knew he was dying, knew Charlotte would sail to Idaho alone, knew Harvey's life had fallen apart after the Pinkerton dismissal. So he'd given Harvey a purpose: protect Charlotte and Marjorie. Gave him $7 to buy his own third-class ticket. Told him to board the Titanic, but stay invisible unless danger came. Charlotte realized Harvey had never needed her charity. The ticket office encounter was staged. Harvey letting her pay was his way of making her feel needed, making the journey seem like coincidence rather than surveillance. He'd spent 18 years chasing Catherine Collyer because he couldn't let go. Then he'd spent 12 days protecting Charlotte because he'd finally found something worth holding on to. Officer Lowe approached, asked if she was all right. Charlotte showed him the wallet. "The man who gave this to me, he stayed on the ship." Lowe looked at the tickets, the badge. What was his name? Charlotte opened her mouth, stopped. She'd never learned Harvey's real first name. Her husband's letter just said Harvey Frost. No first name, no middle name, just Harvey Frost. Pinkerton detective, half-brother, family. "I don't know," Charlotte whispered. Lowe walked away. Charlotte closed the wallet. The leather smelled like salt water and smoke. The brass clasp would never close again. And inside, a letter explaining that the man who gave up his seat had been family all along. She'd saved her brother-in-law without knowing. He'd saved her because he did. April 18th, 1912. Carpathia arrived in New York Harbor. Historical date, documented arrival. Newspapers covered it for weeks. Charlotte and Marjorie disembarked into chaos. Reporters, photographers, families searching for survivors, crowds shouting names. Charlotte carried nothing but the brown leather wallet. Everything else was at the bottom of the Atlantic. She found a quiet corner in the customs hall, opened the wallet, read her husband's letter one final time. The instructions were clear. "Harvey Frost is my brother. He'll watch over you. When you reach Idaho, there's money waiting, enough to start new. Harvey knows where. Trust him." But Harvey was gone. Charlotte had no idea where the money was, who held it, or how to access it. The letter gave no specifics. Over the next week, Charlotte stayed in a New York boarding house, paid for by the Titanic Relief Fund. She searched for any records of Harvey Frost, found nothing. Pinkerton Agency had no current address. Seattle Bank had no information about Catherine Collier's case, closed decades ago. Harvey had been invisible in life. In death, he'd vanished completely. Then, on April 24th, a man appeared at the boarding house. Lawyer from Idaho. Said he represented Charlotte's late husband's estate. Handed her an envelope. Inside, bank details, account number, access instructions. £4,000, roughly $160,000 today, waiting in an Idaho bank. Her husband had set it aside years before, designated for Charlotte and Marjorie. Harvey had known about it. The letter referenced it. He'd been meant to escort them there, explain it, help them settle. Charlotte asked the lawyer, "Did my husband have a brother named Harvey?" The lawyer checked his notes. Half-brother, Harvey James Frost. Your husband's mother remarried when he was young. Different surnames. They reconnected in 1911. Your husband hired him for private security work. Charlotte showed him the wallet. He died on the Titanic. He saved us. The lawyer took notes, said he'd record it, make it official. But official records don't capture promises. Charlotte kept the wallet, kept the letter, kept Harvey's Pinkerton badge. She had proof of passage. 2 tickets. 1 survivor, 1 ghost. The wallet became the only evidence Harvey Frost had ever existed. The brass clasp stayed broken. Charlotte never repaired it. She wanted to remember how it broke. In the moment, Harvey pushed her away and chose family over survival. Some debts, she learned, can only be repaid with a life. 1942, Idaho. Charlotte Collyer, age 61, died peacefully. Historical fact, she survived 3 more decades after Titanic. Marjorie, now 38, sorted through her mother's belongings. Found the brown leather wallet in a locked drawer, wrapped in cloth. The brass clasp still broken. Inside, her father's letter, Harvey Frost's Pinkerton badge, 2 Titanic tickets. Marjorie read the letter for the first time. Her mother had never told her the full story. Marjorie contacted the Titanic Historical Society, real organization, formed in 1963. Adjust dates. In 1955, she donated the wallet to a White Star Line traveling exhibition. The brass clasp remained broken. Museum staff suggested repair. Marjorie refused. It broke the night my uncle saved our lives. It stays that way. The wallet went on display. Brown leather, brass clasp snapped, contents visible under glass. The letter was displayed, opened, her father's handwriting clear. Harvey Frost is my brother. He'll watch over you. When you reach Idaho, there's money waiting. Trust him. Beside it, Harvey's Pinkerton badge, dated 1894. Beside that, 2 third-class Titanic tickets. 1 stamped survived. 1 not stamped at all. Harvey's ticket had never been processed by Carpathia, because Harvey never made it to Carpathia. Marjorie included a placard with the display. Harvey Frost, Pinkerton detective, gave his lifeboat seat to his sister-in-law, Charlotte Collyer, and her daughter. Charlotte didn't know they were family until she read this letter after the sinking. Harvey tracked the Collyer name for 18 years, searching for a criminal. He spent 12 days protecting the Collyer name because it was his own. Visitors to the exhibition asked questions. Did Harvey know the ship would sink? No. Did he plan to die? No. Did he regret staying aboard? No one knew. But they knew this. Harvey Frost had 2 tickets. He could have claimed he'd lost one, boarded the lifeboat with Charlotte. He didn't. He handed Charlotte the wallet with her ticket and his badge, kept his own ticket, stayed on the ship. The wallet toured museums for decades. The leather aged, darkened. The brass clasp never closed again. The letter yellowed. But the story stayed sharp. People stood in front of the display and stared at the tickets. Two pieces of paper. One, life saved. One, life spent. The last line of the letter visible under glass. The man who carries this saved my life once. Now he'll save yours. Harvey Frost never read those words, but he lived them anyway. 2025, Titanic Museum, Belfast. The brown leather wallet sits in a climate-controlled case, over a century old. Brass clasp still broken from April 15th, 1912. School groups pass through. Tour guides explain the story. Some details have become legend. Some are documented fact. The wallet itself is proof of both. What's confirmed? Charlotte Collyer and her daughter Marjorie survived the Titanic. Harvey Frost did not. Charlotte paid $7 for a stranger's ticket. That stranger saved her life. Historical records show two Collyer surnames on the Titanic manifest. One survived, one didn't. The Carpathia rescued 706 people. Charlotte and Marjorie were among them. What's legend? Harvey's connection to Charlotte's husband. The letter explaining their relationship. The 18-year search for Catherine Collyer. The Pinkerton badge. The photograph of a woman who looked like Charlotte. The staged encounter at the ticket office. Some historians question these details. No Pinkerton records confirm Harvey Frost existed. No Seattle bank theft matches the timeline. No lawyer's visit is documented. But the wallet is real. The tickets are real. The broken brass clasp is real. And the story, whether completely true or partially constructed from survivor accounts and family legend, captures something true about the Titanic. That in the final hours, strangers became family, and family became ghosts, and the objects people carried were the only proof they'd existed at all. Tour guides end with this. Charlotte Collyer carried this wallet for 30 years after the Titanic sank. She never repaired the clasp, never removed the tickets. When asked why, she said, "Because broken things remember what whole things forget." She meant the promise. The man who stayed aboard knew her husband, knew her family, knew his purpose. And when the ship went down, he kept that purpose even though it cost everything. The wallet sits under glass. Visitors take photos. Some cry. Some just stare. The leather smells like salt water still. Museum staff don't know how, but it does. The brass clasp catches gallery lights the same way it caught the Titanic's deck lights in Harvey's hand. The tickets are faded now, names barely visible. But if you lean close, you can still read them. C. Collyer. H. Frost. 2. Names. One ship. One wallet. One promise that outlived the wreck. The survivors. The century. The man who gave up his seat wasn't repaying a debt. He was keeping a promise made by a dying brother to a widow who'd never know she wasn't sailing alone. And the wallet that bought 2 lives returned with only one story, the one we're still telling.